Let me tell you something about attention that most people have completely backwards. Attention is not just a nice thing to give someone you care about. In relationship psychology, attention is the primary currency of emotional connection. It is how two people communicate in a moment to moment, day to day, that the other person matters, that they are seen, that their presence in your life registers as significant rather than simply familiar. And when that attention shifts, when it becomes less available, less consistent, less directed, something happens in the other person's psychology that is profound, predictable, and almost universally misunderstood. Today, we talk about what that something actually is, honestly and completely. Here is the situation a lot of men find themselves in. You have been giving generously your time, your focus, your consistent presence. And somewhere along the way, you've started to wonder whether any of it is being received, whether it is being valued, whether the investment you're making is landing somewhere that matters or simply being absorbed without acknowledgement. And the question underneath all of that is simpler and more vulnerable than it sounds. Does she actually care, or has she simply gotten used to me being there? That question deserves an honest answer, and understanding what happens when attention shifts psychologically, behaviorally, emotionally gives you that answer more clearly than anything else available. Before we talk about what happens when attention shifts, you need to understand why attention carries so much psychological weight in the first place. Attachment theory, developed by John Bowlby, and expanded by decades of subsequent research, identifies attunement as one of the primary mechanisms of emotional bonding. Attunement is the experience of being genuinely noticed by another person, of having your emotional states, your needs, your presence registered and responded to consistently. When attunement is consistent, the nervous system relaxes into the relationship. Safety is established, the bond deepens. When attunement becomes inconsistent, when the attention that was reliably present becomes unpredictable, the attachment system activates. It becomes alert. It begins monitoring for the attention that was previously taken for granted. This is not manipulation. This is neurobiology, and understanding it explains almost everything that follows. The first thing that happens when your attention becomes less available is subtle, and it happens below the level of conscious awareness. Her nervous system registers the change before her mind has formed a thought about it. Something feels slightly different. The texture of the connection has shifted in a way she cannot immediately name. She might feel mildly unsettled without knowing why, slightly more aware of her phone, slightly more attuned to whether you've reached out. This is the attachment system doing its job, detecting a change in the availability of someone it has bonded with. It is automatic, involuntary, and completely honest about how invested she actually is. The depth of this early response is directly proportional to how much she actually values the connection. A woman who feels very little will barely register the shift. A woman who is genuinely invested will feel it immediately, even before she understands what she's feeling. Human beings have a consistent and well-documented tendency to undervalue what is consistently available and reassess the value of what becomes less so. When your attention was reliably present, it became part of the background of her daily experience, not unappreciated, but not actively evaluated either. It simply existed the way comfortable things exist, without requiring conscious acknowledgement. When it becomes less consistent, she begins to notice it in the way you notice silence after music stops. The absence creates contrast, and contrast creates awareness. She starts thinking about the specific things your attention gave her, the particular quality of your conversation, the way she felt in your presence versus outside of it, the things she would normally share with you that now have nowhere to go. This reassessment is her emotional system recalculating the actual value of something it previously processed automatically. Here is one that surprises most people, but it is one of the most consistent psychological responses to reduced attention from someone she is invested in. When your attention was constant and available, she had continuous access to you. Your thoughts, your mood, your daily experience were all relatively visible to her. There was little mystery because there was little distance. When you become less immediately available, a natural curiosity develops about what is occupying the space your attention used to fill. What are you thinking about? What are you doing? What is your focus if not her? That curiosity is not trivial. It is the beginning of genuine interest, the kind that produces questions, that produces reach-outs, that produces the specific desire to know more about someone rather than simply enjoying their consistent presence. Distance, when it occurs naturally rather than manipulatively, creates the space that curiosity needs to grow. This is perhaps the most psychologically significant thing that happens, and it is the one most relevant to your original question about whether she actually cares. When something she valued becomes less available, the degree to which she valued it becomes clear, to both of you, but most importantly, to her. A woman who wasn't particularly invested will feel the shift mildly and adjust without much internal disruption. She will fill the space with other things and move on without significant emotional response. A woman who is genuinely invested will feel the shift acutely. She will notice the absence with a specificity that tells her something important about herself, that this connection matters to her more than she perhaps acknowledged when it was readily available. That revelation of her own investment, revealed by the ache of reduced attention, is often the moment a woman becomes fully conscious of how much she actually wants someone. This is the behavioral response that most directly answers the question you were originally asking. When a woman who is genuinely invested experiences a consistent reduction in your attention, her attachment system produces a specific behavioral impulse to restore the connection, to reach toward the person whose availability has shifted. This reach out is not performed. It is not strategic. It is the authentic behavioral expression of an attachment system responding to perceived distance from someone it has bonded with. It might look like a message that has no practical justification, a question she could have found the answer to elsewhere, a reach out that is clearly about contact rather than content. The form it takes is less important than what it reveals. She initiated. She moved toward you. And that movement, unprompted, driven by genuine feeling, tells you more about her investment than any amount of consistent presence ever could. Here is where I want to be genuinely honest with you, because this topic deserves honesty. Everything we've covered today describes what happens when attention naturally shifts. When a man genuinely invests in his own life, genuinely becomes less immediately available because he has things of genuine value occupying his focus. That is different from deliberately withholding attention as a strategy to produce a reaction. The first is authentic. The second is manipulation. And mature women, especially those with emotional intelligence, feel the difference. If your attention is shifting because you are genuinely building something, genuinely investing in your own growth, genuinely living a full life, the psychological responses we've described follow naturally and honestly. If it is shifting as a calculated move to create anxiety, that is a different thing entirely. And it produces a different quality of response, one built on anxiety rather than genuine desire. Build a full life because it is worth having. The effects on connection are real, but they are a consequence of genuine investment in yourself, not a technique deployed on someone else. Here is the deepest truth underneath everything today. Attention given from a full, genuinely invested life is the most attractive form of attention available, not because it is withheld strategically, but because it comes with something behind it. Substance, direction, a man who is genuinely occupied with building something worth building. That man whose attention, when offered, comes from a place of real fullness rather than anxious availability, is the man whose presence is genuinely felt in its absence. Build that life, not to create a reaction, because it is the life you deserve to be living. The connection that grows from genuine mutual investment from two people who both choose each other from a place of fullness rather than need is the only kind worth building. If today gave you a new way of thinking about attention, investment, and genuine connection, subscribe. Every week we go this deep into relationship psychology and what it actually means to show up well for yourself and the people you care about. I'll see you in the next one. Invest in yourself first. Everything real follows from there.